Have you ever noticed that after New Year's, the itch to get back out in the lawn kind of skyrockets? You start seeing lots of people talking about things you should be doing in your yard. Yeah, I don't get a lot of that. We are still firmly in the grasp of winter, still a long way away from spring, but I get it. You're wondering, what can I be doing right now to prepare myself for spring, to set myself on the right foot to have a great season in the lawn? And that's what we're going to talk about today here on Budget Lawns. If you find this information helpful, please give me a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already. All that stuff does help out the channel. Yeah, so it's end of January, first part of February, and believe it or not, we are just really at about the halfway point of winter. Now, when I say that, I mean the astronomical winter, which starts around the third week of December and runs all the way to about the third week of March. Now, the meteorological winter will end and the meteorological spring will begin on March 1st. So it kind of does feel like that the closer we get to March, that spring is really more upon us than it actually is. Because I don't know about where you're at, but where I'm at, we got snow on the ground, more ice and winter weather coming on the way. So the thought of doing anything in my lawn is just not there yet. So you really have to know where you're at, what grass type you have, what part of the country, as to whether or not you're wasting your time and money going out and doing anything in your lawn at this point. Now, I am in the northern part of Arkansas. That's the transition zone, and I have Bermuda grass. So with the wintry precip that we've got coming in my location, lawn care, there's just nothing to do. There is nothing to do. Now, if you're further south, you might be kind of getting into some preparation for a few things. Of course, if you're further north, you're still a long ways out. But if you want to get out and do something in the lawn, what can you do? Look, in my area, there's plenty of leaves to be picked up. My mulch beds out back are just a mess from the dog and kids running through them, playing in the snow and doing their thing over the last few months. And I'm not diligently getting out and keeping those areas tidy. So I guess I could go out and do that. I'm really putting pen to paper and doing some research over what kind of perennials and plants and ground covers I want to plant in the spring. That's really high on my to-do list. So if you haven't done any landscaping, start sketching those things out. Look, if you ask me, a big green lawn with no landscaping, no plants, no color is just downright boring. Start thinking about how you can spruce things up a little bit with less turf and more landscaping. Now, we're really close to getting underway on a huge, and I'm talking huge, landscaping project in my front lawn. That is going to see a massive transformation, so you'll definitely want to stick around for that. Now, something else I've got coming up. Now, when I say this, I am not talking about my spring pre-emergent, but I do have another application of pre-emergent just right around the corner. I've already got it. Spreader's ready to go. Now, typically I would do this application right after New Year's, around the first part of January. And that would be because typically I would have done one back in September to prevent fall and that first round of winter weeds. But because of new sod last year, I didn't get that down towards the third week of October, so I'm running about a month behind. So I do have another application of pre-emergent that needs to go down somewhere around the first or second week of February. That stuff's good for 3 or 4 months, and that's about the point where I just need to reapply to, make sure that barrier is there to prevent any more winter weeds from coming up in this last part of our winter months. That is not the application to prevent crabgrass. That is not the spring application. That will help get me through that first part of spring, but it'll be time around April sometime to get that next application down, which will be the one that will really prevent the crabgrass and those warmer season weeds from coming up to kick off spring and summer. But if you haven't done a pre-emergent, and you didn't do one in the fall, and you haven't done one this winter, you might think about getting one of those down. it needs to be watered in. I like to time mine around any rain coming because I've got my sprinklers and hoses all winterized, and I'm not going to get those out to water in a pre-emergent. So if you're going to do that, keep checking your forecast, time it out with that rainfall so you get it watered in and activates those active ingredients to prevent winter weeds from coming up from now until your spring pre-emergent application. Now, here's something else. If you are a warm season turf, particularly I am talking about Bermuda, and yeah, you know, there's a spring scalp coming up. That's where you take off all that brown, dead, dormant material from the wintertime and open the turf and the soil back up to more sunshine, more airflow, all the nutrients and the heat to help wake that Bermuda grass up from its winter nap. You're going to be doing that spring scalp here coming up soon, and you're going to start hearing people talking about that spring scalp more and more and more and more. Now, people further south will get to it before the people further north will. Now, mine usually doesn't come until the middle part of April because I like to try and wait till after that last frost or freeze before I do anything, which is around April 14th, 15th typically. So you see, I've still got February, March, and half of April till I get to the spring scalp. So don't rush that, okay? Don't rush a spring scalp. Don't think in any of these lawn care tasks that just because someone else is doing it online that means you have to as well. They may be in a different part of the country from you. They may have a different grass type. There are a lot of factors at play. You got to know where you're at, what grass type you have, what you're working with. You got to figure those things out before you go out in the lawn and start doing things that aren't necessary. And speaking of not necessary, here's one little tip that I just have had a hard time getting behind. I know why people talk about it. I know the reasoning behind it, but in the end, I think it's just a talking point and adds another step that's really not for much. Okay, you got your spring scalps coming up.
Today, Junior?
Your spring scalp coming up in the spring, and you'll hear about this other step you can take in the winter called a pre-scalp. Okay, if you're going to scalp in the spring, what is a pre-scalp? A pre-scalp is not taking it all the way down as low as possible, which you would do for your scalp. It's just kind of, you know, instead of giving your hair a buzz, just kind of giving your haircut a trim to get some of the worst of that dead, dormant material off your Bermuda grass lawn before you go, you know, full throttle with the full scalp later on in the spring. But a pre-scalp is sometimes given as a tip to just kind of minimize how much you'll have to do when it does come time for that full scalp. And I get it. I get why they share that with you, but I just can't get behind that. You know, if you want to do it, sure, I guess you could, but for me, I might as well, I figure I'd just, you know, knock it all out at one time and not add an extra step to the process with a pre-scalp. All right. I hope you found some of that information useful. I just wanted to kind of share a few things and have a discussion about where we might be. Here we are in kind of that lull, the winter blues of lawn season. I know many of you were there. I don't know about you, but I really do enjoy this time of year. I enjoy the break. So I'm not that itchy to get out and do anything. I'm kind of soaking in the downtime. But if you are, there you go. Those are some things you can think about. Again, if you found this information helpful, if you like what we're doing here on Budget Lawns, I hope you'll join us more often, and we'll see you next time.